"Ma'am, this area is for brief attendees only," the young lieutenant said. He held his hand up, palm flat, a gesture more suited to halting traffic than addressing a fellow officer. Lieutenant Commander Amelia Wilson didn't react, at least not in any way he could register. She simply finished pouring a cup of coffee, her movements economical and steady. The sterile, windowless briefing room hummed with the quiet whir of projectors and air conditioning. A handful of other officers, Air Force colonels, Marine majors, Navy captains, were already finding their seats around the massive mahogany table. Their conversations dropped to a murmur as they noticed the interaction. Amelia placed the cup on the counter. "I am an attendee, Lieutenant," she replied, her voice even and low, carrying no hint of challenge. The lieutenant's jaw tightened. He was young, with the crisp uniform and overeager posture of someone who had memorized every regulation but understood none. He glanced at her green flight suit, not at the rank insignia on her collar or the gold wings stitched above her left pocket, but at her face and neat regulation bun. His eyes held the flat certainty of a man who had made an assumption and was now determined to see it through. "Spouses and administrative staff aren't cleared for this brief," he pressed on, his voice louder now, performing for the senior officers he imagined were silently applauding his diligence. "I'm going to have to ask you to wait outside." He hadn't even asked for her name. He just saw a woman by the coffee pot, and his mind filled in the rest. Amelia turned to face him fully. She wasn't tall, but she had a way of occupying space that made her seem anchored to the floor. "There must be a misunderstanding," she said, still polite. "The only misunderstanding, ma'am, is your presence in this skiff," he snapped, gesturing toward the secure door. "If you don't have clearance, you're compromising this facility. Now I need to see your credentials." The demand was a pure power play, a public challenge meant to humiliate. Everyone had already been vetted at the main entrance. Amelia calmly reached into her shoulder pocket and produced her access card. She held it out to him. The lieutenant took it, his fingers brushing hers. His eyes scanned the card, and for a moment, confusion flickered across his face. LCDR Wilson, Lieutenant Commander 04. He was an 02, outranked by 2 full grades. He should have stopped right there. He didn't. Instead, his suspicion hardened. Holding the card up to the light, he muttered, "Could be an admin error. A lot of records get mixed up during PCS season." He turned it over, scrutinizing the chip as if he possessed some arcane knowledge. "Lieutenant," Amelia said quietly, "my card is valid." "That remains to be seen," he retorted, walking to the security terminal by the door. A Marine gunnery sergeant stood nearby, his face impassive but eyes weary. He'd seen this movie before. "I'm going to need to run a full verification," the lieutenant announced, loud enough for the room to hear. "We can't be too careful." He slid Amelia's card into the terminal, tapping at the keyboard with unnecessary force. The room fell silent, the social temperature dropping fast. A silver-haired Air Force colonel shook her head. A Navy captain cleared his throat in disapproval, but the lieutenant didn't care. He was on a mission. "It says here you're naval aviation," he said. "Public affairs, I assume? Or maybe meteorology? They issue flight suits to a lot of support personnel these days." The insult was precise, meant to diminish. Amelia's gaze drifted to her golden wings, worn, frayed at the edges from years of use, parachute harnesses, and survival vests. The sterile room faded away. The hum of air conditioning became the roar of jet engines. The mahogany table became the canopy of an FA-18 Super Hornet slamming onto the deck of the USS George H.W. Bush in a stormy night landing. Those wings weren't decoration, they were scars, memories forged in darkness and fire. "Something wrong, Commander?" the lieutenant asked, mistaking her silence for weakness. Before she could answer, a Marine colonel leaned forward, squinting at her. Recognition dawned. His eyes locked on the small circular patch below her flag, a skull wearing a knight's helmet. Strike Fighter Squadron 154, the Black Knights. Memories surged back. A dusty command tent in Helmand Province, a desperate call for air support, his platoon pinned down by gunfire, and then that voice over the radio, calm, steady. "Gunslinger, this is Spectre 1. I have eyes on the target." The strike that saved his men, the silence that followed. The colonel froze. She wasn't public affairs. She was Spectre 1. Without hesitation, he texted Rear Admiral Vance's flag aide, "Sir, get the Admiral down to the briefing room now. The JG is trying to throw Spectre Wilson out. The reply came instantly. Who? Spectre, VFA 154, the one from Kandahar. Across the base, Admiral Marcus Vance read the text. His irritation melted into cold fury. Spectre Wilson. It wasn't just a name. It was a legend. He pulled her record. Distinguished Flying Cross, 8 air medals, over 3,000 flight hours, 900-plus carrier landings, many at night. Top Gun graduate, squadron tactics officer, hero of Kandahar. Vance stood. Get my cover, he growled. The Master Chief's coming too. This wasn't about correcting a lieutenant. It was about defending one of the Navy's finest. Back in the room, the lieutenant had doubled down. Your clearance isn't showing for this briefing, he said smugly. Probably an admin error. You'll need to leave. If you refuse, I'll call security, and we can also discuss fraudulent wear of insignia. The words hit like a slap. Fraudulent insignia, a charge of stolen valor. The room went still. Amelia's calm cracked, not with anger, but pain. She had bled for this uniform. Now she was being told it was a costume. At that moment, the doors burst open. Rear Admiral Vance entered, flanked by his captain aide and the Master Chief. The air changed. Every officer shot to attention. The lieutenant froze, ID card still in hand, his arrogance replaced by panic. Vance didn't look at him. He walked straight to Amelia. Spectre, he said quietly, a smile touching his lips. I was wondering when you'd grace us with your presence. The name echoed like thunder. The colonel nodded in relief. Others realized who she was. Vance turned to the room. For those who haven't had the privilege, he said, his voice commanding, this is Lieutenant Commander Amelia Wilson. She's logged over 900 carrier traps, which for you, Air Force folks, is like landing a jet on a postage stamp in a hurricane. She led the strike that saved 17 Rangers. She brought back a crippled Super Hornet instead of ejecting, saving a $60 million jet. That distinguished Flying Cross, the least we could do. The lieutenant shrank with each word. Vance finished. She's forgotten more about carrier aviation than most will ever learn. Then he saluted sharply. Welcome to the brief, Commander. We need your expertise on the Iranian interdiction scenarios. Amelia returned the salute, her fire rekindled. Glad to be here, Admiral. Vance turned back to the lieutenant. Report to my office at 1500 with your CO. We'll discuss honor, courage, and commitment, the values you seem to have misplaced. His voice was low, deadly calm. He handed Amelia her card. She spoke up gently. With respect, sir. The lieutenant was following protocol. His execution was flawed, but vigilance matters. The standard must apply fairly to everyone. Her words were grace in motion, defending him while teaching the deeper lesson. The uniform deserves respect, regardless of gender or assumption. Weeks later, Amelia was in the commissary when a voice called, Commander Wilson. She turned. It was the lieutenant, now in civilian clothes, looking smaller, humbled. Ma'am, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I was wrong. Thank you for what you said to the Admiral. You didn't have to do that. Amelia studied him. Beneath the guilt, she saw humility. We all make mistakes, Lieutenant, she said softly. What matters is what we do after. Next time you see a uniform, see the sailor, not your assumption. See the rank they earned, the insignia they bled for. He nodded. I will, ma'am, I promise. She smiled slightly. Good. Now go buy your groceries. And, Lieutenant, he looked up. Tuck your shirt in. He blushed, fixing it instantly. A small correction, but a seed of mentorship, planted in the soil of humiliation. The story of Lieutenant Commander Spectre Wilson reminds us that heroes wear many faces, and valor isn't always found in the cockpit of a fighter jet. Sometimes it's in the quiet dignity of standing your ground.